Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this good, lovely afternoon where we get to celebrate and welcome home our accomplished athletes. My name is Desiree Smith, and I'm Chief Information Officer in the Department of Information and Public Relations. And I get the great opportunity to chair this press conference this afternoon. And in doing so, I'd like to introduce the esteemed panel right to my left. And starting directly to my left, there's President of the BVI Commonwealth Games Association, Mr. Ephraim Penn. We have the Acting Premier, Honorable Mark Vanterpool. We have Minister for Education and Culture, whose portfolio is Youth Affairs and Sports, the Honorable Myron V. Walwyn. We have 400-meter hurdles gold medalist, Mr. Karen McMaster.
Yay.
Next to Mr. McMaster, we have 100-meter race semifinalist in the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games 2018, Mrs. Taisha Harrigan Scott.
Yay.
And long jump finalist in the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games 2018, Ms. Chantel Malone.
Yay.
We welcome them back to the island. And to begin this press conference, we'll ask the President of the BVI Commonwealth Games Association, Mr. Ephraim Penn, to give us some remarks.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I had a speech lined up, but the acting premier told me I better be short, so I'm going to try my best to get it in. It's a pleasure to be here, as I said before, and just to be among the athletes again, bring back memories of our adventure down there at the Gold Coast. The BVI first got into, attended the Commonwealth Games in 1990 when Lyndell Hodge competed in the 100 and 200 meters. Of course, he was accompanied by Mr. Ray O'Neill. Since then, we have been to 7 consecutive Commonwealth Games, and now we have finally hit the jackpot in the 8th with a team that has performed extremely well. And the beauty or the amazing thing about this team is that they performed, it was the first competition coming out of last year's disaster. And we had a hope in the back of our head that the Commonwealth Game was going to make a spark and to bring joy to the people of the British Virgin Islands. And by us being here at this press conference, I can clearly say that it has been a tremendous uplift to the country. And I see Mr. McMaster back there smiling, and he knows why. And we are so proud of the athletes, all of them, for the tremendous effort that they put forward. And I am reminded that when we were at the Gold Coast, we had a press conference to begin the meets, and all the athletes, everyone said that they're doing this for the love of the country, they're doing this for the people back home, and they're doing this to lift the spirit of the citizens of the British Virgin Islands. And the night before the competition, the Honorable Mr. Myron Walwyn called me and sent me a text. He said, well, how is it going? I said, well, I'm pretty nervous because of, you expect things, but you don't know what's going to happen. He said, well, don't have no fear. Tomorrow, all of us would be smiling. And we are still smiling. I can see the smile on his face. So I'm just here to welcome everyone. But I have to still do some homework to set the groundwork so that we can do this thing well. We had 10 athletes, a total of 10 athletes at the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. 2 in squash and 8 in track and field. I will just do a brief summary of each athlete so that the press could know what our accomplishments were. In squash, leading squash was Joe Chapman. This was Joe's 4th appearance at the Commonwealth Game. As you know, squash is not played at the Olympics, so the Commonwealth and the Pan Am Games are the highest level that they can compete in. And this is Joe's 4th. He first competed in 2006 in Melbourne at the age of 15. And he has, I checked the records today, and you know when you're checking records in the British Virgin Islands, you check with Ray O'Neill to see who was if he was the youngest ever. And he really did confirm that Joe, I think He is the youngest at 15. And he has been to every Commonwealth Games since. But this year, just like the rest of the athletes, Joe stepped up to the plate in a big way. He didn't win a medal, but in the plate, which is the competition for the second group who have been beaten in the first group, he did an outstanding job. He lost his first match and he won every match since. And he turned out to be the top, I think he was the top Caribbean athlete in squash at the games because he beat everyone. And the final was between him and a guy from the Cayman Islands, and he beat him 3-1. So that was a great achievement for Joe. Next up was Neville Sorrentino. He was dubbed, I think, the oldest guy at the games. But Neville outfitted himself well, and he and Joe did well in their competition. We had 4 athletes in, of course, when people say track and field, we think it's everything is one, but we had 4 athletes in track, in the field events. Tenelle Gums, making her first appearance at the Commonwealth Game, and she competed in the discus. She was 13th, and 9th place after in the hammer throw. I think it was a great achievement for her. She did a seasonal best, and she also did a national record in the event. Not to be outdone, her twin sister, Trevia Gums, she competed in the discus final and also in the shot put final. She improved her qualifying results, and she did an admirable job. Eldred Henry, the big guy, he coming off a long layoff, did some personal bests at the meet, and he improved from his last competition. This is his second Commonwealth Games, and he did quite well also. Chantel Malone, sitting over there. Chantel has, this is her second Commonwealth Games, and Chantel has really stepped up to the plate. She became, in Glasgow, she finished 4th in the long jump, which at that time was the best we did in the Commonwealth Games. And I think her time, and in Gold Coast, she finished 5th, but she improved on her Glasgow time jump. She jumped distance. She jumped 6.41 in Glasgow and 6.48 at the Gold Coast. So Chantel has a lot more to give us. The CAC Games is coming up. We're all excited, and things are going to happen. She is the defending CAC champion in the long jump. Then we're going to go off to what we call the track, the speed people that we have. Not here with us today is Ashley Kelly. She competed in the 400 meters at the Gold Coast, and she ran a credible time of 53 seconds flat, and she was a semi-finalist. Not a good job. Kyrie Herbert, unfortunately, after he started his race, he got injured and was unable to finish, but he did give it an effort. Next we have with us on the podium the person we call the Queen of Track and Field in the British Virgin Islands, Taisha Harrigan Scott. And she has too many accolades for me to mention here today, but just that she finished 7th in her final in her race and 13th overall. And when I was there and she ran, one of my colleagues from St. Kitts came up and said, "But is that your sprinter still there sprinting?" She looked like she's going to win this thing, you know. So she still gave a credible performance, and the reason why she's here is a double thing. This was her last Commonwealth Games, and she is officially hanging up the spikes. But just before we leave, Tahisha, I'd just like to mention a few things about her in the Commonwealth Game. She was the first female to have represented the Virgin Islands at the Commonwealth Games when she made her debut in 2002, Manchester. She competed in 2006 in Melbourne, where she made history by advancing the 100 finals and finishing 5th. At that time was the top finish we ever had at the Commonwealth Games. She competed at the Gold Coast, and I said did incredibly well. Now, I mentioned all the athletes, but I missed out somebody, and I'm sure people in the audience would forgive me for not mentioning Kyron McMaster. But here we are, Kyron McMaster, our gold medalist, and a bright rising star in track and field. Kyron McMaster. So that would summarize, because I know the premier is right here next to me, and he said he's getting warm, so I don't want to keep him any longer than I have to. But it's been a pleasure. It's been a great ride. Thank you, athletes. You have made our journey so much easier. Your commitment to sports and your commitment to putting the BVI first, your sacrifice has made us all proud, and we are proud of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Penn. And now we'll have some remarks from the Acting Premier, Honorable Mark Vanterpool.
Thank you very much, Framey and Ephraim. We know him as Framey. That's our body name for house too. But as Acting Premier, I want to, on behalf of the entire government, Premier and all the rest of us and the people of the Virgin Islands, really welcome back our wonderful 3 athletes. Karen, Taisha, and Chantel, for your excellent work. Give them another round of applause, please. I want to make sure they understand that we in the BVI are extremely, extremely, extremely proud of their performance there. They have made us a household name all over the world, and we want to make sure they understand that that means a lot for us, especially in these times. And we want to thank them for representing us so well, not just on the track, but they're a fine group of men and women who have represented us over there, not just the 3 here, but all those that we have heard earlier from our good Mr. Penn. And we want, as a government, to thank all of our athletes who went over there and really strived hard for victory. We got some victory. We want to express our extreme happiness for the victory that we have gotten. We all were proud of them as we monitored in strange hours because of Australia, but we were still there monitoring what was happening with our good athletes as they were there. We want to especially express appreciation for the gold medalists. Give them another round of applause. Mr. Kyron McMaster put us on the map. I was telling somebody earlier, it was 1984 when we first stepped onto the world stage at the Olympics in Los Angeles. One of the smallest teams, the first time we went abroad like that at the Los Angeles Olympic Games, when we took a number of athletes there, including Mr. Dean Greenaway and others who were there, and also some sailors. And we are glad that we continue to strive on the world stage, even though we're a small country. We believe we have a very big heart. So we want to encourage athletes to continue with that big heart and striving to do well. We will give you support as best we can from back here at home. And I know you're a good minister. He is constantly at us in the cabinet and at various forums trying to make sure that we support our athletes. And today we are glad to see such wonderful results from all of them as you have done well. So on behalf of the Premier and the people of the British Virgin Islands, welcome back to our wonderful athletes. Welcome to Karen, Taisha, and Chantel, and the rest of the team. Thank you for representing us so well overseas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Acting Premier. And we'll move right into the Honorable Minister for Sports, Honorable Myron Walwyn, with his remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to join with Mr. Penn and the Acting Premier, Honorable Vanterpool, in congratulating and welcoming back to the territory our 3 athletes, and also to join in recognizing all of our athletes, those in the Commonwealth Games and all the others who go out and do such a wonderful job at representing us here in the Virgin Islands. But before I get to the athletes, there's some people who make the athletes who they are, and they know that. There are persons in this room who have dedicated their time, significant amount of time for a number of years to help to mold the athletes in the territory. All of them are not here. Many of the coaches are not here, but there's some people who we have to recognize. I noticed that Mr. Penn spoke highly about everybody else, but he didn't speak about himself. Somebody said self-praise is no praise, but sometimes in Totola, if you don't blow your horn, it will never get blown. And I'm blowing your horn for you this afternoon to thank you very much for the work that you continue to do with our athletes. I see right behind as well a former Minister of Sports, Mr. Lloyd Black, who also works very hard with you, Mr. Penn, and who certainly did some wonderful works in the ministry before I took over. And I'll tell you how he comes in to this a bit later on. And then we have Mr. Perth, who's here with us, who is now the manager for Chiron. Parents are here. Give them a round of applause as well, because the support mechanism for athletes is very, very important. If they're not grounded, if they don't have that support and backing, they won't perform as well as they have done. I want to thank all of you for the wonderful representation that you make to the Virgin Islands, because when you go out into the world, you are an ambassador of the territory, and you exhibit excellent decorum. I've never heard anything out of line. Ephraim, if there's something, tell me now in case I hear it. But I've never heard anyone acting outside of what is expected of them by the territory of the Virgin Islands. As a matter of fact, quite the contrary. We have received exemplary performances. And I want to take this time to thank Tahisha in particular for representing the territory for so many years. You have done extremely well, and we are all here very, very proud of your accomplishments. And it's a pleasure to have you back here for this celebration. Chantel, I was able to watch you in action in Mexico. You nearly gave me a heart attack because we were all there, Ephraim, looking at her, and we were saying, oh boy, we wanted to bring it home, and she didn't disappoint us. And we thank you as well for what you continue to do. Now, during the Commonwealth Games, we were at a difficult time in the country. Very difficult time, just coming off of the hurricane. And we needed something to lift our spirits. We needed something to pull us back together as a people. We needed something to remind us that even though we were knocked down, we weren't knocked out. And I must tell you, that was delivered to us. We saw all the athletes, but Chiron, you performed extremely well. You got us up, all of you. We got up early in the morning, 5 o'clock, and we went wherever we could find to make sure we had a television to watch. Don't mind the commentator said that the BVI don't have no power. We had power, and we were watching. And we were full of excitement when we saw what you did in the hurdles, the 400-meter hurdles. There's a lot more that I will say later on, but I can say on behalf of the country that we are extremely proud of you. I can say I was not surprised. I was not at all surprised, because Karen was one of those persons that I noticed a long time ago that had exceptional promise, and someone who took pride in what he was doing. Because when you do this work, I don't think all of us appreciate what goes into being an athlete. It requires a lot of discipline. Taisha, you know that. Chantel, you know that too. And if you stick with what you do, you're going to do well. And I saw it firsthand with Chiron as well. I want to thank all of you very much. We have some money for you. The acting premier is the Minister of Finance. Make sure I have that money tomorrow to give to those athletes. There was a matrix that was done by the former Minister of Sports, Honorable Black, a matrix for rewarding our people when they perform well, and that is the matrix that we're still using now. So that little money there, down by the treasury there, Mr. Vanderpool, make sure you walk with that money tomorrow. I don't want to just give a big check. I want to give the big check that they can see, but I want to give the small one they can put in their pockets. And I want to leave that in your hands to make sure that we properly reward our people for the work that they have done. We are all extremely proud of you, and we wish you all the best. and we will be with you trying to push you harder to do even better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those remarks, Honorable Minister for Sports, Honorable Myron Walwyn. And now, this is the good part. The floor is open for questions to everyone on the panel, all 6. And additionally, we have Kyron's manager and coach to my right, so they'll be receiving questions as well.
Davion Smith, BVI News. Let me go tackle the ministers first of all. Well, Minister Walwyn, you just mentioned that you have a check for our athletes who have done so well. But outside of that, what funds will be pumped into sport so we can have more Kyrons and more Chantels and the works?
Well, the government of the Virgin Islands and successive governments continue to support sports in the territory, and we support it in many different ways. Facilities, of course, some of the facilities have been destroyed because of the hurricane, but we are working in conjunction with the Olympic Committee to get particularly the A.O. Shirley grounds back up on track. We were able to establish a scholarship program where athletes of exceptional promise would participate in the scholarship program. We were able to set aside 2 scholarships for athletes. There's a slight pause on the scholarship program now because of what we're dealing with, but once we get it back on track, it'll be there. There's monies there as well in the budget that we use every year to support all the sporting organizations and help wherever we can. So it's not something that's synonymous just to this particular government, but successive governments over the years have taken sports very seriously and have contributed and will continue to contribute, because particularly now we're seeing the rewards of the hard work and the investment that was made over the years.
Kyron, well, we've watched. Congratulations, by the way, on your gold medal in Australia. But we've watched your commentary. We saw you sit on the panel, and you've made some powerful statements there. But then you went on to Qatar, where you performed in the Diamond League, right? Walk us through that race. There was that third place finish. We're interested to know what happened there.
There's still some kinks being worked out in my training right now. We are actually preparing for our next race. But as far as Qatar, that was just a mishap in the race. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. But any questions based on my training or how I will perform, to be honest, the best person to ask will be my coach.
Okay, first and foremost, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. Qatar is like any other race. You prepare for it and you have no idea what is going to happen. So we prepared our best. We went out there. You had some difficulties on the medical side. I'm not a doctor, so I can't go into too much details with that. But it was not one of his better races. Since he's been back, we've been working at it. He's been recovering from a little injury, so we've been working at it. And the next race that we'll run is in Paris, and we hope to represent himself and the BVI much better at that race.
All right, we're 2 years out, but we're all excited about the Olympics, and we'd love we'd love some sort of something on on.
Okay, as Kyron's coach, my job is to try not to become too emotional about anything. My job is to stay in the moment and work with what is happening now. So actually I am not looking at 2 years down the road. I am actually looking at right now, get them healthy for the next race, and then see what the next race brings, and then we prepare for the rest of the season based on what the next race brings.
Do you think he can better his personal best?
Well, as a coach, anyone who you started working with, and this is my first year working with Kyron, the objective is always to have the athlete go out when they leave you better than they came in. So that's always going to be the objective. I'm a man of God, and to God be the glory for everything that has happened. And so I do even believe that the race that he ran and did not get the result that he wanted, or I wanted, or anybody else wanted, was actually a great lesson for him. And so as a result of that race, we hope to see better results as a result of improved focus, improved application, and all of that good stuff.
And without hogging the mic, just one for Kyron and Chantel as well. We know the big news. You're both signed by Puma, and that's something to applaud. And the public would just like to know more about it. One, how you feel, and if you don't mind divulging the contract.
Being signed by Puma is actually a pretty great deal, especially coming from a small nation of the British Virgin Islands. There's very few athletes that actually reach the level that I have reached. But at that moment, for me, and you could ask anyone around me, with me being on top, it's just not being about me alone. Like, you could ask Mr. Warwin here, like, we had a conversation about a year ago in terms of bringing everyone up, because I know the struggle of being an athlete. When you look at Jamaican athletes who has it, they have the better stuff that we don't have. So with me, with the contract with Puma, I'm actually trying to get them to help out as much the BVI as much as can. As you can see that when the British Virgin Islands compete, we compete in Puma. So now we don't have to run to the government to ask them for funding, for clothing, or or shoes wear. So that's just a next step closer to reaching the goal of an athlete in the British Virgin Islands.
Before we go to Chantel, I just want to know, you said you'd like Puma to help the British Virgin Islands.
Oh, they've done terrific already with what they have done already. Even coming down here, that when I told them that I'm coming back home for celebration, they sent some stuff that'll be hopefully given back to the youths coming up in track and field shortly.
I mean, I think the same thing goes as Karen said. It's a blessing to be, first of all, it's a big move to be contracted by any sports, brand. And I want to thank Kyron, because he basically opened the door for me to be able to be seen, more, I would like to say. And so thank you. And thank you, Norman is also my agent, so he was the one that actually helped me get that contract. And like he said, I just think it's a big deal, because back in the day we used to wear, what we used to wear? I don't even know what we used to wear, but we always found something to put on our backs, right? But now we are so uniformed, and Commonwealth Games was such an awesome experience being sponsored by Puma. So, that's it.
Esther Durand, BVI News. Mr. Master, congratulations. Just piggybacking on what you said earlier, you mentioned that Puma is going to assist the BVI. What exactly it is in terms of assisting the athletes, and also Miss, I can't remember your name, but you are expected to hang up the hat, so to speak. What can we expect of you with all your years of experience and all that good stuff? Congratulations to all three as well.
Well, like I said earlier, Puma has done a great deal already with the BVI, and they are continuing to work with the BVI association. And as you can see, not only with the Commonwealth team, if you look at the character team or the teams that actually go abroad right now that went Barbados or so to compete, they actually compete in Puma, designed by Puma for the British Virgin Islands athletes that's running track and field, and that includes clothes and footwear. So Puma is not actually looking out singly for us, they're actually interested in the British Virgin Islands as well.
For me? Okay. Yes, this is my last year for track and field. My plan for the future is basically to carry out the knowledge of what I experienced and bridging the gap between an athlete and the government, the executive, the committees, or whatever the case may be, because sometimes we have a vision in our mind of what the athlete should get, what the athlete should need, what they want, whatever it is. But in certain cases, it's a far shot from what we actually need. So sometimes getting the athlete's perspective is very important in making sure that we are excelling, we are successful. So my goal is to make sure what the athletes want, their voices are heard, and giving it to the administration to ensure that we are successful and they can bridge the gap and become competitive, because we have a lot of talent in the BVI. So we just need to make sure that, yes, we are a small country, but it doesn't matter the size of the country. It matters our determination, our heart, and what we can actually put into our youth to make sure that they excel. So once we continue to support them and ensure that they're working in the right direction, because there are going to be progressions in reference to Kyron, we got the goal. And that's the ultimate goal. But along the way, it's never that up road. So we have to ensure that we understand that going up sometimes requires going down, going side. So we have to understand that celebrating the accomplishment is great, but supporting the achievement to get there is what we definitely need to keep in track. So that's my...
Education Minister, you mentioned that you all are going to give them a little something monetarily wise. I'm sure everyone here is dying to find out how much exactly it is.
It is something sufficient to show how much we appreciate them in the Virgin Islands.
Seems like the press is satisfied. We'll ask the acting premier if he has any final statement.
Yeah, first of all, we want to again thank everybody for being so well representing, even today at the press conference, for the good team that represented so well in your responses. We want to, of course, have in memory, and we'll probably hear more about it tomorrow, most likely, of Kyron's coach, who is no longer with us, but grew up with me in my village, and we lost him. But we want to remember Coach Dak Samuel, who was so instrumental in having us here today. So we want to remember that. We also want to make sure that we all remember that tomorrow is the big celebration. So don't sleep, don't work. I didn't say don't work all day. Don't, as Premier, don't work on that time. What time is it going to be? At 2 o'clock tomorrow, get up from your desk, and if they charge you, don't send the bill to me, but just tell them you're going to the celebration of these wonderful athletes. At 2 o'clock tomorrow, we'll be celebrating. And maybe tomorrow you'll hear the figure, maybe. So tomorrow we'll see you at 2 o'clock. Please, everyone listening, be there tomorrow. The big celebration is on. The big parade and everything will be on, and then we'll be going to the Pier Park, where we're going to finalize the celebration. If it's not there, you've missed history. I'm going to run up the hill, make sure my grandchildren come down the hill, and they're going to be there to be a part of history. So be there tomorrow. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, acting premier. So that brings our press conference to a close, and we'll now go and get ready for the motorcade. But I have one question though. It's for the athletes. Can I get your autograph? Yeah. So we'll get that later. Thanks, everybody. Yeah.